Hello, everyone. Um, yeah, as you were saying, yeah, that would be interesting. I don't really know what I want to read next.
I think I really want to read that book, but I just got that book about the octopus. I should read that first.
Yeah. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Kayla. Hmm.
I don't know if we could put them on Spotify. That might hit copyright too.
Yeah, I have to look at what Spotify's
Rules are.
legal rules are with that.
Let's go! Brandon is ready.
Ready for Remus to get in with them werewolves?
No.
Oh yeah,
No.
it's happening. Hi, Anna or Anna.
Is it Anna? Because then I could ask her if she has a sister named Elsa.
Maybe that's why that's the first way to pronounce it in my mind. We've had to watch that movie so many times at this point.
It's always just going to be Anna.
Yeah.
First instinct.
Pretty good. Basically just, so today I kind of narrowed it down to a few books I want to do reviews for and started planning those out. And then, how's everything been going for you since the update yesterday?
Pretty good. I think I'm going to continue taking notes for the Chamber of Secrets ring theory videos. And then I've got to finish the Silmarillion.
Oh, there you go. We were just talking about what books we want to read next, and yeah.
I've got to finish the Silmarillion, and then maybe I could do a video about that.
It is Anna.
Ah!
So we were right. Awesome.
Ben says he's watched Frozen every day this week.
Ben, feel ya, man. Kayla doesn't want werewolves.
Yeah, Sarah says the same thing. Like, the werewolf stuff is just eh.
I'm hyped. Let's do werewolves. Let's put Twilight in its place.
I don't know. This is giving me some Twilight vibes these days with how terrible. No, I shouldn't say.
I really don't know. I never read Twilight. I don't know. I just pick on it because that seems to be the general consensus. And I know it has werewolves.
I only read the first one because someone suggested it to me, and I regretted that decision. Same toxicity as Twilight. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Edward gives off some very strong Remus vibes.
Yeah. I can see that. Yep, girl dads. What are you gonna do?
I mean,
it's the sacrifice we must make.
But we also get to watch, Gravity Falls and Camp Cretaceous.
All right, you got me there.
So, we get to watch good stuff.
I feel like we could make just a video or a post about that. Shows to watch with your kids that you'll actually like too.
Yeah, we could. We could do that.
I already do that with people I talk about who have kids, or they're talking about I watched this show like a million times. Like, all right, listen, you got to get them into this show, this show, this show.
Yep. Shows to watch with your children that will not make you want to scratch out your eyes. For us, it's just Paw Patrol and Frozen over and over and over. I highly recommend, like I said, Gravity Falls. I will recommend Gravity Falls to everyone and anyone all day long, kids or not. Also, Bluey. Ben, get your kid to watch Bluey. You'll love it.
Yes.
A series of unfortunate events is in the public domain. Just giving you more ideas. Hi from Baltimore.
Really? Yeah, that one. Let's do that one. I like that one.
Is it?
I mean, that's awesome if it is. I love those books.
Me too.
They're so great. And let's just talk about the Netflix show. I mean, come on. Neil Patrick Harris.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah, Gravity Falls gets really twisted at the end. Also, Ben, right now we are on the show Owl House.
Yeah.
That is just on a loop.
Owl House all the time. But it's really good. Owl House is really, really good.
Yeah.
And yes, Gravity Falls is so awesome. Yes. Someone else is a fan. Yay.
Yeah.
Owl House, Gravity Falls, and Bluey are all on Disney Plus.
Gravity Falls is also on Hulu.
Is it?
It is.
Oh, okay. And they have it on in the car on repeat, and now I hate it.
I could see
Well,
how it could get old quick.
That's true. And Kayla's probably had to watch it a lot longer than we have because she lives in Australia, so everything's released immediately.
Oh,
Whereas
yeah.
we have to wait for it to hit Disney Plus.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. I heard that the new season of Bluey is,
coming out.
yeah, it's also tugs at the heartstrings a bit.
For real life.
Ah, biscuits.
My beans.
Oh my god.
We're gonna annoy Kayla. Yes, but it's the same episode. Oh, that's terrible.
Ooh.
We had to watch the Fairy Garden episode so many times that I can't watch the Fairy Garden episode anymore.
I can't either.
But, yeah.
I'm getting that way with Owl House, though. It is a great show, but we've watched it so many times. I'm just...
Yeah. We've watched Owl House quite a lot. I don't know if I could ever get sick of Gravity Falls, though. I could probably watch those over and over. Kind of like The Office. I could watch The Office over and over and over. Never get tired of it. Ever.
Ramona's so into Bluey right now, we actually had to buy the Bluey books.
Yep, we had to buy the Bluey books. What was it? The Creek, The Beach, and a couple other ones. A couple other stories in that big book. Bob Bilby. I like The Creek, though. There's a kangaroo in it. Oh, she named her plush pig Waddles.
Aww.
That's awesome.
Now that's a true fan. Now you need to get a plush and name it Waddles.
Dude, that is totally awesome. Dude.
No refunds.
We put the fun in no refunds. We do have a little Gravity Falls collection somewhere. Back that way.
Yeah,
We've got the books back there. We've got the journal. We've got the Lost Legends.
It's how we've been helping Ramona learn how to read. Anytime she gets really into a show, we try to buy the books.
And, I just wanted to read the journal.
Yeah, the journal was definitely more of a you thing. But the Bluey books.
The Bluey books, yeah. Also got a Grunkle Stan Funko Pop somewhere in my house, too. Just,
On that note, though, why don't we start this episode? I know you've been putting it off. Like, oh no, let's talk about kids shows a little bit more. A little bit more. What about Grunkle Stan?
My favorite Creed moment, Halloween. That is really, really good timing. Oh my god, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. I forgot about that.
I've seen that episode.
There's so many good Creed moments, though. He's so funny. I just rubbed my eye, and I got makeup on, and I just rubbed my eye.
It's ruined.
I love when Michael does the big 5K run or whatever, and he carb loads by eating an entire container of chicken Alfredo right beforehand. I think I'm the youngest one here, but I watch the older shows. I mean, what have we shown? We've shown Ramona. Ramona likes Hey Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
She actually quite likes Hey Arnold. And she loves SpongeBob. tried to get her into Rugrats and Ah Real Monsters. She watched Ah Real
Courage
Monsters.
the Cowardly
a little
Dog.
bit.
I started showing her that. She likes it. I have to pick and choose the episodes. Some of those are really creepy. And I'm worried it's going to give her nightmares, but yeah.
I'd like to try the Wild Thornberries with her again. I think when we started watching it, she was too little. And I think she'd like Ah Real Monsters now.
Yeah.
I think she was a little Pokemon Indigo League.
Yeah. She is into Pokemon. She does watch it every now and then.
She does watch Pokemon. She does like it. My nephew's obsessed with Pokemon. I was obsessed with Pokemon. I remember being a kid when Pokemon first came out. Oh, God. Glory days.
I know.
Glory days.
We were there for the first season.
The first season. We were there for
when
the
there was
inception.
only one island.
One island, one region, only 150 Pokemon.
Or yeah, one region. There were like 3 islands in the region. But
Kanto. That was it.
mm-hmm.
As Told by Ginger is in the same realm as Wild Thornberries, one of my favorites. Oh my God, I forgot about As Told by Ginger. I used to watch that all the time too. That was a good show. I think that was definitely geared towards girls.
Maybe.
I liked As Told by Ginger too.
I was more of a Doug type of guy.
Oh, I liked Doug too. Doug was
great.
Awesome.
Patty Mayonnaise.
Quail Man. Pork Chop. Roger Klotz.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Dink.
Very
expensive, Douglas. Very expensive.
One
Ben says the closest thing to world peace was 2016 when Pokemon Go came out.
Facts.
yeah. Humanity.
I miss that summer, honestly. That was fun.
Me too. I spent a lot of time walking around with a lot of people, just catching everything. And I am so close to catching all of the original 150. I didn't really care about anybody else. I just wanted to have the originals, all of them. And I only need like 15. Maybe less than that.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah, I have pretty much almost all the original Pokemon.
I have no idea. It's been so long since I logged in.
Right, yeah. I'm pretty close. I've got one more challenge to complete, and then I can catch Mew. Chronicles of Narnia won't be in the public domain till 2045.
Ooh.
That's a bummer.
But
Same is true probably about his Dark Materials. Those are probably way beyond.
But the fact that a series of unfortunate events is...
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to look up. That's what I was trying to find out.
That is pretty awesome. Because I would love to do those books. That was one of the first book series I read where, like, I couldn't put it down.
The logo is in the public domain.
I read it, and, like, I had to get the next one. The next book.
I absolutely loved these books. They were so good. Should we start reading, though?
Yes. Let us go where the werewolves are. Where the wild things are in
Where the
public domain?
I don't know. I did read a story, though, that...
Putting off werewolves for a little bit longer. Okay.
It's about where the wild things are.
Okay.
I think I might be butchering the story just a little bit, but I can't remember if it was the kid or the kid's mom wrote a letter to Maurice Sendak talking about how much they loved the book.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote back. He sent a letter back. And it's like his favorite story ever about a fan. He wrote a letter back, and the kid ate it. I'm paraphrasing very badly, but that's pretty much what happened. And Maurice Sendak said that it was literally the most perfect response to a Where the Wild Things fan whatever. Like he ate the letter. Look it up. I'm ruining the story. I didn't tell it very well.
Great.
But it's pretty awesome, right? All right, let's do this, guys. Ooh.
Yep, don't want to spill it.
Don't spill. Let's not spill
that.
anything. All right, let's do this, guys. Hopefully it doesn't suck too much.
It's positive thoughts.
Okay.
It's going to be great.
Chapter 157. The War. The Pack. Once upon a sunshine, before the final bell, I told my story to Big Boy, with connection straight from hell. His fiddle was his sweetheart, he was her favorite beau. And hear me saying was all he was playing, them songs from long ago. And then I told my story to the Cannibal King. He said, baby, baby, shake that thing.
That went totally different. It started out like Mary Poppins and ended Motley Crue. I don't know. It was great, though. It was awesome.
Saturday, 13th of January, 1979. First moon. I hate this, Sirius said, chain-smoking. I know you do, Remus replied. He rubbed his temples. He was getting a headache, not uncommon on a full moon. I mean, I really hate this, Sirius puffed, staring out of the window. He stood there, one arm folded across his narrow waist, other arm crooked at the elbow so that he could hold the cigarette to his lips. He had to keep stretching up on his tiptoes to blow the smoke out of the gap in the window. It was too cold to open it all the way. Every time he reached up, his T-shirt rode up almost to his belly button, displaying soft skin and a line of fine dark hair. Remus lay on the couch, a cold flannel on his forehead, watching Sirius inhale, stretch, puff. Lovely, lovely creature. How had Remus ever got so lucky? It's bloody mental sending you on your own. Why can't I go with you? I could go as Padfoot. No, Remus sighed. You still smell human. They'd tear you apart. What if they tear you apart? Sirius turned sharply. He looked distraught. His cheeks were pink, which was incredible for he of the porcelain complexion. Me? Remus snorted, trying to sound careless. Greyback's prodigal son? Not likely. What's a prodigal son? Oh, right. Just means I'm going to get a warm welcome. Gaius said not to hurt me. Livia called me her brother. Could I come with you? Could I come with you for a bit? Just before anyone else shows up? It's not safe, Padfoot, Remus said gently. Sirius stubbed out his cigarette angrily on the windowsill. Remus wished he'd stopped doing that. They would need to repaint it soon, but now was not the time to scold him. Why don't you go to the Potters? He suggested. Don't spend the night here by yourself. I don't care where I spend the night. Sirius flung himself into the armchair. Well, I do, Remus tutted. I need to know where to go after the moon's down. Shit, yeah. Sirius sat up, sweeping his hair back. Okay, I'll go to the Potters. And if you need any patching up, Euphemia'll be on hand. Fuck, what if you can't apparate? What if you... I'll send a Patronus. But if you're not strong enough... I will be, Remus replied simply. He was going to an enchanted forest based on the coordinates Moody had sent. If there was even half the magic there was in the Forbidden Forest, then Remus foresaw no problem getting himself out, unless someone with equal strength tried to stop him, but he was trying not to think about that. A faint chiming sound echoed through the walls. They hadn't met their neighbours properly, only waved shy hellos in the hall, but they knew they had a grandfather clock because it went off every hour and was so loud they could hear it in their living room. It was 4 o'clock, and the depths of winter, which meant sunset was imminent. Remus sat up slowly, tossing aside the flannel. His back ached, early pangs telling him the moon was on its way. I better get going, he said. Sirius stared at him, stricken. Remus tutted, getting up. He bent over and kissed Sirius's forehead. "Go to the Potters. I'll be fine. Honestly, you go on missions all the time." "Not like this. Defensive stuff, guard duty, carrying messages, not—" "Someone's got to do it," Remus shrugged. "I'd rather it be me." He thought of Danny again and flinched, shaking his head to rid himself of the negative memory. It kept coming up ever since Remus had learned the truth about why Danny had been turned. God, the McKinnons had every reason to hate Remus. He put his shoes on, tying the laces carefully, though he knew he'd only have to take them off again soon. He wore muggle clothes. This had been Ferox's suggestion. The werewolves had no idea where Remus was living or how he was living. If Remus could convince them he'd been shunned by the wizarding world, then all the better. They hugged at the door, Remus's skin already burning up, Sirius clinging to him so tightly Remus thought he'd have to take him after all. "I love you," Sirius said into his shoulder. They hadn't said it since Hope's funeral, but Remus had no trouble at all responding instantly, "I love you too. I'll be fine. I'll see you soon, I promise." And then he left, and he apparated, and when Remus opened his eyes, he was very much alone. He was somewhere in Derbyshire, at least he thought so. It was rapidly growing dark, and the thick forest canopy made it darker still. The night air was very cold and clean, but Remus was already too warm and began to strip down at once. He was alone, after all. There was no need to be shy. Except he was not alone, not completely. This was definitely a magical forest. He could taste it on the breeze, hear it in the rustling of the wintry tree branches. The moon began to rise, and Remus felt his body start to change. He braced himself against an oak, clawing at the bark with his nails, toes curling in the mouldy leaf litter. The trees seemed to empathize. The earth rose up to meet him, damp ground cooling his feverish skin, owls and foxes and bats and all the nocturnal creatures of the woodland crying out as he screamed, and his skin burst open and his bones cracked and his teeth sharpened until he was no longer Remus, and he howled along with them. The wolf snarled, whipping its tail. It did not know where it was or why it was alone. Where were the others? Where was the black one? It sniffed the air, sensing something nearby. It threw back its head and howled once more, singing to the moon. For the first time in its life, the wolf did not sing alone. A cacophony of beautiful voices joined in, answering, and he ran toward them at full pelt. With every beat of its wolfish heart it panted, "Home, home, home. I'm home." Sunday, 14th of January, 1979. Coughing and spluttering, Remus returned to his senses. He came back piece by piece, confused and sore and exhausted. He opened his eyes and squinted at the cold yellow morning sun flashing at him through bare branches. All round him the sounds of others waking up, some broken sobs, rough gasps, and female laughter. Their scent was so delicious, so safe, so comforting. Remus propped himself up on his elbows, dead leaves sticking to his mushroom-clammy skin. He had a long claw mark along his right thigh, 3 stripes oozing blood. Around him, 6 or 7 others lay naked on the forest floor, slowly coming awake. "Brother!" A familiar cackle sounded out. Remus twisted round to see Livia crawling toward him on all fours, her hips swaying, a deranged grin on her face. In the daylight, her tattoos looked like animal markings. They covered every inch of her scrawny body in great sweeping spirals. "I knew you would come." She knelt at his feet, and he tried to draw his knees up away from her, but she shot out a hand and grabbed his ankle. "You were beautiful, Remus Lupin. Beautiful," she purred, leaning forward, her hand moving up his leg. "Get off me, Livia," he growled, trying to kick at her, but she held him fast. "Shh," she said playfully, leaning over even further, her hand moving even closer. "Just relax, my love, my darling brother." She stretched out her hand and ran 3 splayed fingers down the cuts on his leg. It felt weird. His whole body seemed to tingle and quiver. he felt warm and, worryingly, on the verge of arousal. He did pull away then, scuttling backwards on all fours like a crab. Livia laughed at him, holding up her 3 bloody fingertips, then sucking them into her mouth one by one, grinning and murmuring with pleasure. Disturbed, he stood up quickly, finding that whatever Livia had done, it had healed the wound. He was only left with a silvery scar. The others were up too and closing in on him, walking toward Remus through the trees, eyes burning with curiosity, sniffing the air. Some of them were cut or scratched, but they each healed each other just by touching and channeling the natural magic which surrounded them. Bullshit! Many of them had shaved heads and the beginnings of the same tattoos Livia had. Others were perhaps more recent initiates and had longer hair, clear skin. Remus wanted to summon his clothes, and ideally his wand too, but it seemed a bit rude when everyone else was stark as too. Besides, he wasn't cold. At least not yet. He wasn't frightened either, which seemed strange. He looked round at the other faces. Still that voice deep within him said, "Pack, pack, home." "Gaius," Livia said suddenly, standing up. Gaius was at her side in an instant. He smiled at Remus, licking his lips. "Welcome, brother." "Welcome, brother," the others echoed, one after the other, like a peal of bells. Remus felt a surge of adrenaline, of strong, undeniable connection. "We're so glad you could join us," Gaius said. Livia turned to him and began to lick his wounds as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Castor was there too, but he hung back. Since Remus had last met him, Castor had received a wound which slashed over his face, a long split across the nose. It was healed over, but it ruined his once beautiful face. Remus remembered himself and found his voice. "I've had enough," he said, raising his chin. "I've had enough of the humans. I want to see what else there is." Gaius's grin widened and Livia looked up too, blood on her lips and teeth. "Our father will be so pleased," they said in unison. "So pleased," repeated the group. "I want to meet him," Remus said. "Will you tell him that?" "In time, Remus Lupin," Livia and Gaius said. "In time." Something was happening, though. The pack was retreating. They walked away, back into the trees, the brush, fading into the landscape like the predators they were. Remus felt a tug in his chest. He wanted to follow them. He didn't want to lose their company yet. "Where are you going?" he asked Livia as she too began to back away. "We'll see you next month, Remus Lupin," she said, her face softening somewhat. She looked almost kind, if you ignored the blood drying in the corners of her mouth. "It is not long to wait." "But They both turned and did not look back. Now Remus started feeling cold. The chill seemed to begin inside him and work its way out. He felt a horrible empty loneliness that hadn't been there before. Their scent was gone, their familiarity, the safety they represented. "Jesus Christ, Mooney," he hissed at himself. "Sort yourself out. You're not really one of them." He summoned his clothes quickly and held his wand tight. It felt weird, somehow vestigial. Much easier to simply summon the strength in his own body, at his very fingertips. No need for a silly stick. He frowned. He did not feel himself. Best to apparate back to the Potters quickly before he turned completely feral. He apparated to the back door and knocked weakly on the glass of the French windows. He felt much more tired by then, perhaps the effort of apparition, or just being away from the forest and back in mundanity. Mrs. Potter was already in the kitchen and came over at once, opening the doors. She beamed at him with creased and wrinkled eyes. "Remus, dear," she said, her voice very quiet. The others must still be sleeping. "I better ask you something. Let me see. Oh, I'm no good at this. Where did you boys go on holiday before your 7th year?" "Cornwall," Remus replied promptly, grateful to be reminded of that wonderful summer. "Near Truro." "Lovely." She opened the door. "Now are you all right? Anything hurt?" "No, I'm fine," he said, stepping into the kitchen, extending his arms as if to prove his good health to her. Oh God, now he was in the house he could smell Sirius, and everything in him wanted to seek him out at once. Lovely, Mrs. Potter smiled tiredly. Well then, I think I'll go back to bed. It's hours until breakfast. The boys are sleeping. Sirius is in his room, but if you wanted a bit of peace and quiet, I've made up the spare bed too. Thanks, Mrs. Potter, Remus said, practically running up the stairs to the bedroom Sirius was in. He remembered himself just before slamming the door wide open and instead pushed it gently, peering inside. It was quite dark, the heavy curtains drawn over the early sunrise. Are you awake? He whispered, redundantly, because he knew that he was. Moony! Sirius sat up immediately. Remus hurried over to the bed, hanging back at the last moment because, no, he wasn't a wolf now. He was human and he had to act like it. Are you okay? Yes, he nodded emphatically. It was fine. It was nothing. We just hunted. Hunted? Sirius's eyes widened. Rabbits, Remus clarified. He could still taste the gamey flesh between his teeth. His stomach flipped and he grew warm once more. Honestly, it was fine. Easy. I was so worried about you. I didn't even sleep. Do you want to get in? He pulled back the covers. Remus shifted, still standing. I'm a bit on edge. Sirius frowned, confused. Remus cleared his throat. You know, like the other day. Oh! Sirius reached out and touched Remus's arm gently. He bit his lip, shivering delightfully, getting a taste of the same feeling. So you are, He reached out and put his hands on Remus's hips, curling his fingers in under the waistband of his jeans. Sirius tugged him toward him. That's okay, I can sleep later. They did sleep later, both of them, and thankfully James and Lily and the Potters left them undisturbed. When they woke up at 5 o'clock in the evening, Remus felt like the worst guest in the world, though of course Sirius was perfectly at home. Remus tried to explain the night's events to Sirius, but there were things he couldn't help glossing over. Livia healing him in that intimate way, the desire he'd had to stay, to follow them. It wasn't lying, he was being as honest as he thought was safe. Later he told Moody and Ferox an even more censored version. They didn't ask for much detail, to be fair, and Remus didn't see why he should give them everything. He was keen to keep the other werewolves' identities private for as long as he realistically could, and for now they were only interested in Greyback. As for Remus, he was the closest he'd ever been to the thing he wanted ever since he was a child. He was going to meet the man who destroyed his life, and he was going to kill him. Sunday, 11th of February, 1979. Second moon. Holy...
Oh, wait. We just did like a buffer. Why does this happen like once a month?
I don't know.
It's the full moon. Our internet turns into a werewolf.
I can wait a few minutes. If you'd like.
Yeah, just give it a second, because for some reason we're like at half upload right now. See, it's red. It's not good. Come on, work itself out.
Unbunge yourself. We gotta at least finish the chapter. Oh, is this a good time to maybe just go to the bathroom real quick?
Yeah, if you gotta go.
Yeah,
to the
I gotta
bathroom,
go. I gotta go to the bathroom. So.
Because normally it works itself out pretty quickly.
All right. Yeah, I'll just use the lube real quick here.
Sorry for the issues, guys. I just saw that it was buffering a little bit here and there, so Yeah. It's not like our upload is bad right now. It's just not what I have it set to. So I don't know why it's like buffering with so many issues. I don't know. Let me know how it is, guys. Is it really stuttering a lot or. Oh, no worries there, Thomas or Deliza. Yeah, um, fanfics aren't for everyone. Definitely not. So,
Is it better? Can I come back?
yeah, you can come back.
Can I read?
I mean, I think so. I really don't know what the issue is because our upload look is just kind of jumping. It's like we have an 8 meg upload right now, which isn't bad. It's just not what we normally stream at.
So we're good? I can keep going?
I don't know because I haven't seen. It's saying that it's not uploading what it should, but the stream hasn't like been stopping and buffering. So I'm assuming it's okay.
It's just way behind where we're at.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah, see? Oh,
Oh, I said something.
well, Deliza, that's great. I am so happy you've managed to join us.
And yeah, we're gonna do what we can to get all our videos
Back.
yeah situated. Okay, so it looks like
It's
just
fine.
yeah.
Okay, then I'll keep
All right,
going.
I just wanted to make sure because it's saying it's not on our end, but
Yeah.
if it's coming through,
Kayla says she's buffering a bit.
oh okay.
I don't know why it does this.
I don't know either. But I guess we'll keep going and just let us know if it gets really bad.
Yeah, if you guys are missing bits and this and that, we'll stop again. But I guess we'll just. It keeps buffering for me as well. Okay.
Oh.
I don't.
Maybe we'll just put our target down a little bit and see.
If that helps.
Yeah.
Ben says his was fine. His was having issues. Lost you all together now. Okay.
Oh.
Why you like this? I actually only have 2 bars on my phone right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is everyone just having internet issues in our area?
Yeah, is it just the internet here in general?
This can never happen when I'm at work. It has to happen when we stream. Why?
YouTube is out to get you.
It is.
Maybe they can't handle us. We're too dangerous. I don't know.
Okay, that was.
Kayla says she's good now.
Okay, so let's
All right, I'm going to start reading and you guys tell me if it's good or if it's bad. Okay? All right. Saturday, 11th of February, 1979. Second moon. In the intervening month, Remus... Yeah, see, now I'm down to like 1. I don't know. All right, anyway. YouTube also hates the werewolf chapters. In the intervening month, Remus tried to retain a semblance of normalcy. He attended meetings and met his friends. Often he would go and see the girls on their lunch break, Lily and Marlene at St. Mungo's, Mary only a short bus trip away in Kensington. He phoned Grant if Sirius was away and he got lonely, and he listened to records and he read books. But he couldn't ignore how different he felt. Sometimes it caught him off guard. A memory would come to him, or a scent, and his toes curled and he licked his teeth. His dreams became almost exclusively about forests and howling and cool, soft moonlight. He was better prepared the second time. Just as nervous, though. He apparated to the same spot as before in case they came to meet him, but they didn't, and he transformed alone. The wolf found its pack even faster this time. They keened and yapped in greeting. The alpha bitch nipped his ear and rubbed herself against him. The younger wolves ducked their heads in submission. Then the hunt began. The wolf could not remember ever having such uncomplicated joy before, even with its other pack. The range and the fear and the hunger slipped away with the wind in its fur, the scent of the herd they stalked. When they finally caught up to the deer, Remus, Gaius, Livia, and Castor were the first in. They took down the stag. The others followed suit, closing in on the struggling beast. The wolf leapt and dug in its claws, relishing the panicked heartbeat of its prey. It sank in its teeth and tore away flesh, and hot, rich blood slid down its throat. When Remus woke up, he was not hungry. He allowed Livia to lick his wounds clean this time, too dopey and satisfied to think too hard about any of the implications. "Will I meet Greyback next month?" he asked, before Castor and Livia could melt back into the shadows. "Our father is looking forward to meeting you, Remus Lupin," Livia said. "You must be a little more patient, my brother." "Have I proved myself?" "It is not for us to decide." He stayed in the forest longer than usual, perhaps just out of laziness. Even alone he felt better there than he had anywhere else. He would have liked to curl up and sleep beneath the trees. When Remus finally reappeared outside the Potter's back door, it was the middle of breakfast. Lily, James, and Sirius were there, faces anxious and drawn, nursing large cups of milky tea. Mrs. Potter was standing at the window peering out, and jumped when Remus arrived. She swung the door open. "There you are!" "Sorry," he murmured, a bit wobbly on his feet. "Oh my God, Mooney, are you all right?" Lily was at the door now too, and she pointed at him, horrified. He looked down and saw the blood. It had trickled down his chin and neck, pooling in the hollow above his collarbones, and dried there without him even noticing. "Shit!" He rubbed at his mouth self-consciously. "It's not mine, it's not—" James came to the door next, and Remus suddenly felt very queasy, covered in stag's blood, having feasted on deer only hours before. He stuck an arm out to lean against the wall, giddily. "Come on, Mooney." Sirius ducked beneath James and Lily and touched Remus's hand lightly. "Let's get you cleaned up." Gratefully, Remus allowed himself to be led upstairs to the bathroom. Sirius ran a warm bath and then stood leaning against the sink while Remus soaked himself, blinking dazedly at the rust-coloured swirls in the warm water. "It's not human," he said shakily. "I know," Sirius said. "It's deer, I can smell it." "You can?" Remus looked up at him. Sirius wrinkled his nose. "I have to concentrate, but yeah. I was talking to Prongs about it. The longer we're animagi, the more weird things we noticed. Hope I don't go colourblind next, eh?" "Oh,
I have to concentrate, but yeah. I was talking to Prongs about it. The longer we're animagi, the more weird things we notice. Hope I don't go colourblind next day.
Remus tried to laugh at this attempt to alleviate the tension, but he was too shaken up.
Was it bad?
Sirius asked gently, lowering his voice as if Remus were an invalid. No, Remus thought to himself. It was wonderful. I was happy. I was normal. He was disgusted with himself. What's happening to me? He looked at Sirius and nodded.
Yeah, it was bad.
Tuesday, 13th of March, 1979. Third moon.
I don't want to go back to the Potters this time,
Remus said before he had to leave for the third moon with the pack.
What?
Sirius came out of the kitchen where he'd been doing the washing up. He was becoming steadily more house-proud, or maybe it was just the nervous energy. The war was hotting up for everyone, not just Remus. He was wearing a pair of bright yellow marigolds, which Remus had bought him as a joke, but he loved so much he wore every time. They were wet and shining, dripping suds on the carpet.
I said I don't want to go to the Potters,
Remus repeated.
In the morning. You can stay there, obviously, but I just won't, okay? I don't know how safe it is. I don't want anyone to follow me. We've been fine so far.
Sirius had been doing that a lot, saying we when it was really only about Remus.
I think we've been careless, Remus shrugged. I don't want to put them in danger again. Okay,
Sirius nodded. He peeled off the gloves slowly.
Where do you want to go then?
I don't know.
I thought maybe Cornwall. The castle ruin we visited. Do you remember? Of course I remember. Shall I meet you there?
Wait for my signal. I want it to be safe. Remus shifted from foot to foot. He wanted to pace. His back was aching again and he needed to go soon, but he kept still in case it worried Sirius.
Mooney, if it's not safe, then I'd rather be there so I can help. I know Prongs and Wormtail and Evans will too... No. Mooney, if it's not safe, then I'd rather be there so I can help. I know Prongs and Wormtail and Evans will too. No.
Remus raised his voice.
No, please. But Mooney...
Look, I have to go. He practically flew out of the door. He didn't even put his coat on. He hadn't said a proper goodbye. He hadn't even said I love you, which they'd been doing every time they were separated, just in case. But of course Remus thought he was coming back. He couldn't have known what the pack had planned. This time it was a relief to shed his human form and give up responsibility for a few hours. They ran and played and fought and howled through the night, rustling fairies up from the underbrush, following scents they picked up. As the moon began to fade, the wolf slowed down, starting to whimper as it felt its body shrinking back to pathetic human form. The others stopped too and drew in close. Livia was the first one to pounce, and Remus, half wolf, half man by this point, tried to struggle, but she held him fast, her paws becoming claw-like hands. Castor and Gaius had him too, pinning him down as Remus groaned and clenched his teeth through the pains of transformation. And when he was human once more, and then he was human once more, pressed into the ground by the pack, braced against their tangle of strong, hot limbs, he raised his head, yelling, "What are you doing? Let me go!" Livia laughed astride him, throwing her head back, and then it happened. The weird, sucking, squeezing sensation as all four of them apparated, Remus helpless to do anything but cling on and pray he didn't get splinched. Suddenly the ground beneath him was hard, cold stone, rocks digging into his bare back. The others finally got off him and he scrambled to his feet, staring round wildly. They were indoors, in a high-ceilinged chamber, like was it a church? It was cold and it reeked of the pack and ancient magic. The others stood round him, smiling madly.
Oh, hold on. Oh, okay. It's been saying excellent connection, and then the stream just like disappeared, and now it's back. I don't know what YouTube's doing right now.
Chapters.
It has been all right. It just like disappeared for us, so I just wanted to make sure.
The others stood round him, smiling madly.
Where the fuck am... Remus started, but stopped short as Livia stepped to one side and a tall, dark figure approached. Remus knew that scent. He knew those burning yellow eyes. He froze, paralyzed by terror. Greyback stepped toward him, teeth bared in a cruel smile. "Welcome home, cub."
Your internet just dropped?
Yep.
What the heck? Well, the stream's up, so let's talk about this.
Yeah, we could just talk about the chapter for a second here.
So what'd you think? I want to ask you first.
I hated it, honestly. I hated a lot of things about it.
What'd you hate about it?
Livia can just lick his wounds clean?
Yeah. Magic saliva.
Ew, no, no. I don't buy it. That's not how it works.
Madame Pomfrey used to do it, but Dumbledore said that it was kind of weird, so he asked her to stop.
He used Sirius for sex again.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bummer.
Like, ew, gross.
Are they in a relationship, or is he just a booty call at this point?
Yeah, like, and he's just like, oh, he's lovely, lovely creature.
At least he didn't talk about his wrists.
Yeah, but he talked about his body. It's always all about how gorgeous Sirius is and his body and
Fair.
right, calling Grant when he's lonely. When Sirius isn't there, he's calling Grant.
Yeah.
And then he's not telling Sirius everything about what's going on, about the fact that he's got these urges to join the pack.
I know.
There's that again.
Yeah, it's annoying.
The pseudo-sexual stuff with Livia, I'm just like, ugh. The whole thing about the wand being vestigial.
Yeah, but that's always been in Harry Potter. The wand.
I know, but it goes back to this whole werewolves are apparently a super magic species. Like,
no, but maybe they, I don't know. They possess the same magical ability as the one group of wizards who don't need wands to reduce magic.
You always go back to this every time.
Because it's
right,
canon that
right.
You can do magic.
But they study that for years to do that. Remus studied magic using a wand for years, and then all of a sudden he's just a werewolf. He can just do it.
Maybe they should have just tried becoming werewolves. Maybe they are werewolves.
They're not.
Yeah, no.
They're not.
Do we see them on the full moon?
They're not. The werewolf plot is just dumb, and I hate it. And I don't know. The whole thing where he's wanting to join the pack and he wants to do it. What does that mean, no data?
I don't know. Nothing lines up because it says that we're sending data on my end, but I don't know. YouTube is being difficult tonight.
I don't know.
But I guess it's more our internet because you just lost connection on your phone.
Well, and I got it back in like 2 seconds after that too. So I don't even know. Well, what did you think? What did you think?
It was a chapter. No, I think there was a lot of interesting stuff that could have been great, but I just think the author tried to do too much in this story. And I don't think she or they built up uh, the whole werewolf thing enough for it to work, for him to all of a sudden be like, I want to be part of the pack, you know? It was just this subplot that showed up like every 20 chapters.
Yeah.
You never really got a lot.
Yep.
To now just throw him in and all of a sudden he's like drawn to the pack. I mean, they kind of mentioned it a little bit with like Remus saying, you know, oh, I got to join the registry and all this
Yeah.
other stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm always going to be a second class citizen. But while doing that, he also never had that idea that, well, maybe Greyback is what I should do. I should go over to the werewolves. The whole time he's like, I'm going to kill Greyback. I hate him.
Yeah. And now he's like intoxicated by being a werewolf with the pack, and like the whole thing
And
about
it's not even like it's a conflict for him. He's just like, ooh, I like this.
Yeah.
It's not like that conflict, like, this kind of feels right, but Greyback.
right.
You know?
There's no conflict.
Yeah.
And he has to force himself to go down to back to the mediocrity of being human, I think is what he said. And in the books, like they say that Greyback recruits werewolves using that tactic. You're always going to be a second class citizen. You're always going to be an outsider. No one's ever going to. It's all about harnessing that feeling of being other, of being rejected, and Greyback saying you'll always, you'll be a part of the pack. It's not this like intoxicating magic orgy werewolf fest thing going on,
Licking each other's cuts.
Yeah, and all of this stuff. It's Greyback being manipulative and gaslighting that gets these people to his cause. But this reads like there's some really animalistic, pseudo-sexual, primal magic juju weirdness going on. I don't know.
You know, if we didn't already...
Hi, Maddie. Welcome.
Hello, Maddie. If we didn't already have this super depressed, hateful Remus for the entire story, it would have been, in my opinion, a much better plot device to have him like go on this, and then he finds out that someone was turned into a werewolf that night. You know, someone was bitten.
Right.
And he can't remember if it was him or not. And
right.
He has this conflict of, did he do this to that person?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you could.
Right now, it would just kind of be redundant because, oh no, Remus did something and he feels horrible about it.
He's still blaming himself over the whole Danny McKinnon thing.
Yeah.
Maddie, all we did was read one chapter, so we're gonna read another one. We're discussing.
We're on the fence about reading another because for some reason our internet is up and down right now.
Yeah, Remus's self-hatred kind of killed that plot device.
Yeah.
That would have been a really good one to use, but the author has used that many times already. That is Remus's fault.
So I don't really know how I would necessarily fix this chapter. But I think it was just kind of like, I don't know, it didn't feel like there was any point to it, I guess.
I think the point was to show that the conflict is going to be that he's going to want to kill Greyback, but he's going to also want to join the pack. But what about returning to humanity? To Sirius?
You don't.
I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going
I
to
don't
be...
care enough about their relationship.
Well, because it's toxic and abusive. Yeah. And if this Remus Lupin decided to stay with the pack, then Sirius is better off, and so is everyone else.
Remus is going to kill Greyback and take over the pack.
Fine.
Or maybe attempt it, and Greyback is gonna
beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like that. Maddie, Remus calls Grant now when Sirius is away on missions, because when Sirius is away on missions, Remus feels lonely. So he calls and talks to Grant. That's why. Poor Grant, honestly. I feel bad for him. Grant is too good for this.
Exactly. Grant's making something of himself. Don't be dragging him down.
Into your miserable werewolf self-hatred bullshit.
Exactly.
Remind me again why this is better than Harry Potter?
I don't know, because we're kind of running out of room for, turning points. I thought we were going to get into a slump and we were going to come out, which we did.
Yeah, but...
We did kind of come out. It got better. But the werewolf thing is not looking like it's leading anywhere.
I am not into it. And I think this chapter is going to be... a struggle.
Why? What's it called?
Captive. Content warning. Wrong on all levels. Sirius and Grant deserve way better. Yes, they do.
Sirius and Grant deserve each other.
Yes, they do. Sirius and Grant should just say F Remus and date each other.
Run away together.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where Sirius is. He's not really on the mission. He's a Grant.
Ben's like, maybe if you're super into werewolf stuff, it's awesome. But... This says, content warning, some unpleasant childhood flashbacks, and obviously Remus is now in Greyback's clutches, so not a lot of fun stuff here.
In his clutches? What?
I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know. Hi, Molten Dragon.
Hello, Molten.
Kayla says she's buffering, but everyone else seems like they're alright.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with our internet. It's beyond our control. It was working fine all day. I worked from home today. No issues.
I wonder if my parents are watching a movie or something and sucking up all the bandwidth. But that shouldn't be doing it.
Our internet is better than that, yeah.
Alright, bye, Molten Dragon.
Thanks for dropping in.
Timothy says, the title of this next chapter is so close to captivating, but yet so far. Hi,
great.
Ren.
Hey, Ren.
Maddie says she's good.
All right.
We can go ahead. We'll start. I'll start the next chapter if you guys start experiencing issues. Kayla, I'm sorry that you're experiencing issues, but if anyone else is having trouble, speak up and we'll stop. And all right, Kayla. Are we ready?
Yeah, let's go for it. I mean, it's seems like 50-50 with people buffering or not, so
we'll just roll with it.
Let's add more confusion to all of this. Some people it's fine, other people it's not. I don't know.
Your internet is fine, nothing is buffering. Okay, we're gonna go with it then.
Let's go with it then.
Chapter 158, The War. Captive. As they pulled you out of the oxygen tent, you asked for the latest party. With your silicone hump and your 10-inch stump, dressed like a priest you was. Todd Browning freak you was. Crawling down the alley on your hands and knees, I'm sure you're not protected, for it's plain to see. The diamond dogs are poachers and they'll hide behind the trees. Hunt you to the ground they will. Mannequins with kill appeal. I just wasn't feeling it, sorry.
It's okay. They can't all be bangers.
Wednesday, 14th of March. Well, Bailey would stop.
Go ahead, I'll go see what he's looking at.
Wednesday, 14th of March, 1979.
Welcome home, cub.
Remus said nothing. For now, he had nothing to say. He just wanted to get a good look. Fenrir Greyback. Remus had expected him to be taller. He wasn't short by any standards, but when Remus stood up straight, they were at eye level. That was good. That gave him a flutter of courage. He may not be taller than Remus, but Greyback was certainly bigger in every other way. Hulking broad shoulders, thick squat neck, muscular arms. He had long, thick yellow fingernails, dark wiry hair covering his forearms and sprouting up over the collar of his cloak, meeting a dark beard that was more like fur than hair. His eyes were dangerous, inhuman. The magic radiating off of him was not like a wizard's, at least not any that Remus had encountered. Like a full moon, it was searing. The scent, while sickeningly familiar, was not inviting. Remus had felt at home with the pack. He'd felt that he belonged, but not with this man. He was the enemy, and always will be.
Like what you see?
Greyback's smile widened, showing sharp, predatory teeth, long yellow canines. Remus stared impassively back, mouth shut. He realized that Greyback did not like it. Greyback had expected him to speak, to beg or to rage or even panic, and Remus knew exactly what to do with bullies who wanted a reaction. He cocked his head, pulled a nonchalant face, and shrugged.
It's okay, I suppose. Oh, could I get my clothes back?
Greyback's pupils seemed to dilate, or maybe Remus just imagined it. Either way, he recovered quickly, still smiling stiffly.
Where are my manners? Castor!
He snapped his claw-like fingers. Castor appeared at Greyback's side in a moment, straight-backed and wrapped in a fur cloak, carrying a bundle of clothes. Livia was there too, gazing adoringly at her father. The old church they stood in had no ceiling, and in the rosy dawn light Remus could clearly see Castor's face for the first time. There were 3 long pink scars down one side, claw marks, pink and soft as burnt skin. Greyback saw him staring.
Shame about that,
he said, reaching out and stroking Castor's cheek with one filthy fingernail. Castor did not flinch.
Hated to ruin something so pleasant to look at, but he's learnt his lesson. Haven't you, cub?
Castor nodded, staring straight ahead like a soldier.
Good boy.
Greyback stroked his scarred cheek.
Still beautiful, though, eh, Remus?
Remus said nothing and looked away, disgusted.
And I thought you were a connoisseur of beauty.
Greyback tutted with mock disappointment.
That's why I sent you my loveliest children.
Livia gave a quiver of pleasure at that, tossing her head proudly. Castor held out Remus's clothes and he took them, dressing carefully. He felt in his jeans pocket for his wand, but it wasn't there.
Ah,
Greyback growled.
Looking for this?
He withdrew the long, thin stick from his own mud-spattered robes. Remus felt a horrible twist of longing for it.
I'm afraid we don't allow these foolish human toys.
Greyback smirked. He took Remus's wand in both hands and snapped it clean in two. Remus had struggled not to cry out. That had been Lyle's wand. And in fact, it had been the only thing Lyle had ever given Remus that wasn't completely worthless. He bit the inside of his cheek. Hard. Greyback handed the wand fragments to Livia, who twiddled them gleefully between her fingers like batons. Remus raised his chin defiantly.
What do you want from me? I want what I've always wanted, cub.
Greyback stepped closer so that Remus could smell his sour breath, their noses only inches apart.
I want to take care of you.
He reached out to place a hand on Remus's shoulder, and it took every ounce of Remus's will not to flinch or duck away. Greyback's long fingers squeezed him in a fatherly manner, but a bit too close to his throat for comfort.
I've come to join you,
Remus breathed, struggling to hold his nerve. Greyback tilted his head back and laughed. It was a gruff, wheezing laugh from the deep inside his chest.
That's what my children tell me. Remus Lupin has joined us, they say. He has cast off the human world. But I wonder...
He licked his lips, looking Remus up and down lasciviously.
I wonder if Remus Lupin has truly changed his ways.
I'm here, aren't I? Remus protested.
I've spent 3 moons with... And where were you between the moons?
Greyback challenged. He sniffed the air between them.
You reek of humankind.
With that, he released Remus's shoulder, pushing him backwards hard. Remus hit the stone floor with a thump and a gasp of surprise and pain as his back jarred. Greyback walked away, his pack dividing to let him through.
Castor, Livia, look after our guest. See if we can't wring some of that humanity out of him.
Remus climbed to his feet stiffly and went to chase after Greyback, but Livia and Gaius blocked him with their bodies. Over their shoulders he watched Greyback leave the church through an open archway and disappear into the bright green foliage beyond. Alone and wandless, Remus backed away from the others warily. He wondered if he could apparate, but he didn't dare, and after all, surely this was the mission. He'd achieved what he'd set out to do. He was in Greyback's pack. Pushing any thought of home or his friends aside, Remus faced his captors. Now was the time to be brave. Livia approached him first, tossing his splintered wand parts away and grabbing his arms, twisting them hard behind his back. Castor came next, same stoic expression on his face. He was unwinding a length of rope, holding it out.
Oi!
Remus struggled against Livia.
Piss off, you're not tying me up.
It's not for long, brother, Livia hissed in his ear. It is necessary. Then she licked him. She ran her long tongue up from the nape of his neck almost to his hairline. He shuddered in disgust, struggling harder, but she only laughed. She was so strong. They bound him tightly, then forced him forward, Castor leading, tugging on the rope round Remus's arms and body, Livia pushing from behind. He stumbled awkwardly through the church, still unsteady on his feet, having only just transformed. He was shoved towards what must have been what once must have been an altar. Behind that was an old arched ambulatory, and beneath those shadows a set of steps leading down into a grave-like cellar. They began to descend, the strong smell of damp earth rising.
Where are we?
Remus asked. We're home, Castor replied without looking back. Livia gave him a rough jab in the back, and he didn't ask any more questions. They reached the bottom of the stairs, which opened out into a crypt, the vaulted ceiling only just tall enough for Remus to stand straight. There was not much there. A weird, milky light filled the room, but appeared to have no natural source. There were gated chambers either side of the walls, once for tombs, Remus assumed, but now emptied. They'd been replaced by blankets, old stained pillows, and animal furs. Remus blinked hard, his eyes adjusting to the light, and before he could get his bearings was thrown forward into one of the cells. Livia growled some incantation, and the wrought iron bars slammed closed across it, the heavy black chains coiling tight over the lock.
Oi!
Remus threw himself wildly against the bars.
What the fuck?
Sit! Livia barked. Remus's legs folded beneath him and he was down. She smiled at him.
Rest, brother. Patience. I came here to join you. You can't treat me like... Do not make me silence you, she hissed. He shut his mouth, voluntarily. Perhaps it would be better to wait and see for now. Livia licked her lips. Try to rest. She stalked away. Castor was left behind, staring at Remus, face inscrutable, body still rigid. Remus stared back. His poor face. Had that been because of Remus? Had he been punished for the last time in the Forbidden Forest? His dark eyes bored into Remus for a long time, unflinching, until Remus scowled at him. What? Is Remus Lupin truly here to join the pack, to submit himself to our father? What do you think? Remus jutted out his chin, though he knew he hardly looked dignified, sitting on the filthy floor with his hands bound against his body. I think... Castor inclined his head slightly, as though no one had ever asked him about his own thoughts before. I think that Remus Lupin does not yet know what he will do. Remus didn't have a response for that. Obviously, he'd like to think that was not true, that his will was iron, unbreakable. But just now, trapped and unarmed and exhausted, he couldn't muster up much pride. Castor didn't seem to mind. He just nodded very slightly and then backed away into the room. Rest, Remus Lupin, he said before turning his back. The crypt was filling up now. The other werewolves were arriving, saturating the room with their scent and their energy. Remus backed into a corner, knees up to his chest, and watched them from the shadows. Their ages only varied slightly. Remus didn't think any of them were older than 30. In various states of undress, he could see that all of them were thin and scarred, and some tattooed. None of them were particularly clean. Still, as they all settled in, apparently to sleep off the events of the full moon, Remus couldn't help but feel some sense of security and warmth. He was still getting used to being surrounded by his own kind, and the urge to settle down and make himself comfortable as they were all doing was strong. As if their hearts were all beating as one, they were all part of the same body, and now was the time to sleep. Livia was nowhere to be seen, nor Greyback, and Remus took some comfort in this. The dark chamber grew warm, and as the pack settled in quietly, murmuring and whispering amongst themselves as they bedded down, Remus's eyelids grew heavy and his limbs soft, and eventually the exhaustion caught up with him, and he drifted away. Where are you, you filthy little beast? Matron's nasally voice screeched as she stalked up and down the echoey hallways, high heels clicking like a predator. When I get my hands on you, I'm going to wallop you into next week. Remus curled up even tighter in his hiding place, covering his ears with his hands and squeezing his eyes shut. She'd never find him. He was too good at hiding, and very, very small. He was underneath one of the big boys' beds. He knew he wasn't supposed to be in their dorm. He'd get beaten up if one of them found him, but he knew how to keep quiet. He'd learned that in the first few days at St. Edmund's, and now he'd been here for some time, he hardly ever got picked on unless he really got in someone's way. Remus didn't feel very well. He was starting to hurt all over, and his skin was hot and prickly. He wanted his mummy, but he didn't know where she was anymore. Maybe she'd gone somewhere with Daddy and they'd come and get him soon. Maybe they were hunting down the bad man that hurt him. Remus pinched himself hard. He didn't want to think about the scary man. He couldn't remember very much of it except that he was really frightened. Pinching helped, except now the hurting all over was getting worse. The bones in his legs stung and he desperately wanted to stretch them out, but someone might see him. Finally it was too much, and another wave of pain forced him to uncurl, letting out a cry. Ah! Aha! Oh no. Matron. Suddenly there was a hand round his ankle and she yanked him hard from under the bed. There you are, you little monster! Come with me! You know you've got to go to your room! No! He moaned as she hoisted him up and carried him under one arm. Not the room. He hated his room. It was so scary. Let me go! He beat his fists against her, but she barely reacted, marching down the corridor, down the stairs and toward his cell. Let me go! He screamed, crying now, snot and tears running down his face. I want my mummy! I want my mummy! She's not here! Matron snapped. She opened the door and set him down inside, slamming it shut hard in his face. He heard the bolts go and he began to cry harder. It was so dark.
He was scared of the dark ever since the bad man, and Mummy always let him have the hallway light on. But Matron wasn't like Mummy. She never did nice things, only horrible things because he'd been so bad. Was he here because he was bad? Was that why Mummy didn't want him and Daddy went away? He sobbed and screamed, but no one came. It was too scary and too dark, and it hurt. It hurt. It hurt. A horrible growling filled his head, and suddenly Remus remembered why he didn't feel well, and why he needed to be locked up into the room. Remus awoke with a start. His face was wet with tears, and he was sweating all over. It took him long seconds to remember that he was 19, not 6, and not locked in his cell at St. Edmund's. He hadn't thought about the home for a long time, and he tried never to rehash those memories. His heart pounded in his ears, adrenaline coursing through him, and he struggled to get his emotions back under control. He was being watched. It was Jeremy, the young man Gaius had been recruiting back in the Manticore's head. He was leaning against the bars, peering at Remus.
"Bad dream?"
he asked, his voice rasping as though he was getting over a bad cold. He was thinner than Remus remembered. Remus straightened up quickly, reaching up to wipe his face with the back of his sleeves, finding that the ropes had mysteriously vanished. Had someone come in and untied him? Had Livia done it somehow? The room behind Jeremy was empty now. It was just the two of them.
"It's okay," Jeremy said conversationally. "I had bad dreams here too, when I first got here. We all do. They tell us it's all the old stuff coming to the surface, the memories we don't need. Once they're gone, we can start our new lives with the pack." "Were you all locked up like this?"
Remus asked, his throat sore. He was thirsty, but he didn't want to look weak.
"No,"
Jeremy shrugged.
"Just you. They're worried about you, after what you pulled back in the pub. And there are other stories. They talk about you sometimes. Who does? Livia? Castor? Greyback?"
Jeremy shrugged again, apathetic.
"Yeah, that lot. They're in charge. Livia's first because she was turned by Greyback. You get better stuff if you're a direct descendant."
Remus snorted. He wondered if Jeremy knew that he'd been turned by Greyback too, and whether or not being tied up and thrown in a cell counted as better stuff. Jeremy began to cough, a deep chesty crackle which racked his body and doubled him over. He pulled his fur cloak tighter around his skinny frame, and Remus finally felt something beyond anger or fear. He felt sympathy.
"Do you live here in this place?"
he asked softly, looking around at the dank cellar.
"Between the moons?"
Jeremy nodded.
"Better than where I was before,"
he said. Then, as if bored with the conversation, he simply stepped away.
"I'm hungry,"
he said blandly.
"I'll tell someone you're awake. See ya."
And Remus was alone again. He climbed to his feet carefully, checking that nothing was broken or sprained or too sore. No, he actually felt better than he usually did after a moon, even with Madame Pomfrey's care. If only he wasn't trapped. If only they hadn't destroyed his wand. He reached into his jeans and found that they'd left him with his pocket watch at least. Remus held the heavy metal object in his hand, letting it grow warm against his skin. He thought about Sirius, though he knew he ought not to. He didn't know who was listening in on his thoughts, and even if no one was, Sirius was a weakness. Was he worried? He must be, Remus told himself. That's what love was, surely. Had he gone to the castle ruin in Cornwall where they'd all agreed to meet? Had he waited and waited, wondering where Remus was? What had become of him? Perhaps he'd raised the alarm, told the Potters first, then got a hold of Moody or even Dumbledore. Remus didn't think either would be much help. As far as they were concerned, Remus would be in one of three situations. Dead. 1. Dead. 2. Completing his mission to infiltrate the werewolves. 3. Turn double agent and actually join the werewolves. And from Moody's perspective, whichever it was, Remus was best left where he was. He hoped no one said that to Sirius. Already his resolve was slipping. Remus forced Sirius to the back of his mind. There was nothing he could do but try his hardest to see the mission through, stay alive, and get back to him. That had to be his focus. He paced the cell a few times. It wasn't big, maybe 5 steps across, three deep. The animal pelts it had been lined with were deer and bear, and something else Remus didn't recognize.
not wolf, not anything native to Britain. He touched the bars. They felt weirdly warm and seemed to hum against his skin. Magic. Having a sudden brainwave, Remus stepped back and closed his eyes. He was a bit stiff and still foggy from sleep, but the magic was there, in the room, left over from the pack and from Livia's binding spells. He tried to gather some of it into himself. It was very difficult without a wand, and with his nerves so shaken. He pulled and tugged at the atmosphere around him, but it was like trying to smoke an unlit cigarette. Nothing came through, and he just got out of breath. The magic seemed just beyond his grasp.
Admirable efforts, dearest.
Remus opened his eyes and jumped, seeing Livia now standing in the middle of the room. She grinned at his discomfort and gestured to Jeremy, who was coming down the steps behind her, holding a large pewter jug and a plate with some food on it. Bread and meat. It smelled like rabbit, and Remus hoped it was. He began to salivate almost at once. Livia snapped her fingers, and the jug and plate left Jeremy's hands and reappeared on the floor of Remus's cell with a pop. So, he thought, you could transport things through the bars. That meant he could get out of them if he tried hard enough.
Eat up, my darling, Livia purred. Father wishes us to be strong.
Thank you, Remus said. He made eye contact with her and tried to hold it. That had worked with Gaius and accidentally with Danny. They submitted to him eventually. Livia returned his stare and smiled, looking very pleased.
That's my boy.
Where's Greyback?
Show some respect.
Her eyes flashed, and Remus felt a stabbing pain in his skull. He gasped, pressing a flat palm against his forehead.
He is our father,
Livia hissed.
All right,
he yelped. Where is our father? It made him sick to say it.
That is none of your concern.
I want to speak to him.
In time, once you've proved yourself.
How am I supposed to prove myself? How am I supposed to prove anything locked up in here? Remus raged, frustrated. Livia just smiled back at him.
Remus Lupin will find a way. Goodbye, brother. Do remember to eat something.
She turned and stalked out, snapping her fingers at Jeremy as she did so. He scurried to follow her back up the stairs, giving one backward glance at Remus as he did, mouthing, "Sorry." Remus watched their feet disappear as they reached the top of the stairs, and then heard a loud grinding noise as something heavy closed over the hatch. The strange light that had illuminated the room all this time went out, like a light switch, and Remus was left alone, locked in the dark.
Well, seems like we have a Bellatrix of this story.
Yeah.
Eat, brother. This whole situation with the werewolves is kind of weird.
Also, where were these flashbacks in the beginning of the story to give us a sense of all the awfulness that Remus has been through?
The author didn't think of it then.
Oh, is the author more of a gardener like Martin, not a plotter like Rowling?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I think that's why the view count kind of dropped there. In and out. I mean, it seems all right now.
Yeah,
Still
we seem
kind
to
of
be
like
okay.
goes up and down, but it's not as bad.
I mean, it's all right. People can come back and watch it.
Yeah.
We'll just have to make sure Thursday that we don't have these issues.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
maybe we can start streaming to Twitch again too, because obviously it isn't just because we're streaming to both at the same time.
no, because last time that's what we thought it was.
Because now it's happened twice when we're streaming just to YouTube, so it's a YouTube problem. Because when we stream to Twitch too,
Twitch never has
Twitch
a problem.
never had it. YouTube, step up your game, or we're switching platforms.
Yeah, so what did Maddie, the wolves are full of magic, no wand needed, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
On my end, it had shown that the live completely ended, but after a few minutes, it just continued as if nothing happened.
Oh, okay. This stream has ended. Just kidding.
I don't know.
I didn't say this stream ended. What are you talking about? What do you think of the magical bars?
I think I don't care at all. It was like Remus gonna have like a dark night of the soul moment, and then he's gonna come out the other side, and he's gonna have all these traumatic memories, and then...
No, here's what's gonna happen, alright? I'm calling it right now. Remus is going to go in this dark place. He's gonna feel like being with the werewolves is his only option, yada yada. And Sirius is going to be his rock and pull him out of that dark place. Again, because Sirius just has to save his ass every single time. And then Remus is going to say a bunch of abusive stuff to him, and Sirius should just walk away and leave him to his fate. But he's not going to, because Sirius is a great guy. He's going to pull him out. And then, probably like a chapter or two later, Sirius is going to go and kill all those people, allegedly.
All those muggles.
And, you know, then Remus is going to be like, "You hypocrite! You stopped me from killing people just so you could go out and have all the fun." And then, you know, Harry Potter happens.
And then Harry Potter happens. Yeah, I didn't feel any sympathy either. I think the flashback was the most interesting part. Just don't care about Remus anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said. I mean, the flashback was interesting. I think it was just misplaced.
You want to put like a flashback towards like the beginning of your story, so you have an understanding of who your character is and why they have the hang-ups that they have. Like, if you have a really guarded character who doesn't let people in, well, maybe they don't let people in because they have, like, a really abusive ex who traumatized them, and now they're not going to let anyone in, you know. And then you give a little flashback of this one time when he hit her, or something, you know, like...
I'm not the writer here, but if it were me, I would have opened with that. You would have just opened with Remus hiding under the bed and yada yada, and then, you know,
Right.
fast forward modern day.
Right, like some kind of prologue.
Yeah.
Thing, yeah. Can't expect to pull at our heartstrings after the endless chapters of making us hate Remus.
Right?
Yeah.
My heartstrings have been tugged to their full extent.
They are disconnected now. This is not Jane Eyre. There are no invisible strings tied to anyone's hearts anymore.
Jane Eyre, that's in the public domain, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
Yes,
So maybe we can pull at some heartstrings.
we can definitely read Jane Eyre. I know I would love to.
Never read it, but you've talked about it so
I would
much.
love to visit Thornfield again. I just Livia is gross. Greyback is gross. I don't care about.
We knew Greyback was gross.
Well, we already knew Greyback was gross. I also got some heavy, like, Livia and Greyback were off in the woods getting nasty vibes.
Yeah, Livia is mommy Greyback.
Even though he calls her his child. There's some really twisted things going on.
It's like a Craster's Keep situation.
Yeah, they're all gross. Yeah, they're all disgusting. And I have no sympathy for this guy, Jeremy. I got nothing. I got nothing for that.
They all have these names: Gaia, Livia, Greyback, Caster, and that's Jeremy. We don't talk about Jeremy. We just keep him downstairs in the cell.
Right?
Better that way.
Like...
Jeremy is the Potter of this family. Greyback are the Dursleys.
They keep him in the dungeon under the stairs.
fingers crossed Sirius leaves at some point.
I hope Sirius just leaves his ass. Like,
Wisens up.
come on. And then Remus can be depressed for another 20 chapters because he was the reason why he lost the only good thing in his life.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
No.
We're gonna have a depressing, like, 10 chapters after Sirius kills everyone, and, well, you know, Wormtail kills everyone. Sirius.
Gets framed for killing everyone.
How could he have been so stupid?
I feel like Sirius isn't gonna leave. That's what my gut says. I feel like Sirius isn't gonna leave.
Well, what do you think? How long's the next chapter? We have time for another one? Do we want to... Stream seems kind of stable. Do we want to go for it?
We can go for it and then clean the fish tanks after.
Okay.
We can read one more just to get one more out of the way, because then we can start on chapter 160.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
See.
All right. We're going to give it one more chapter tonight, guys. Here we go. Chapter 159. The War. Submission. Content warning. Lots of nasty stuff in here. Remus is imprisoned and alone. He has some very dark, depressive thoughts. Also some negative body image stuff, bullying, abusive relationships, hallucinations, and paranoia. Are we ready for all that?
Oh, yeah.
Let's just do it.
Bring on the paranoia.
Maddie, she's like, oh, boo-hoo. Ah, girl, I feel ya. Let's just get this one over with then. Oh, you silly thing, you've really done it. You've really gone and done it now. Oh, you silly thing, you've really gone and done it now. Sunday, 25th of March, 1979. Remus was going mad. That was the only explanation. Time passed slowly, each second eked out over weeks, and then hours whooshed by all at once like missiles, knocking the breath out of him. They brought him meals, and that was the only way he could measure out his days. No one spoke to him. Perhaps they'd been warned not to. Perhaps this was part of proving himself. They looked, though. They stared. The pack returned every night to sleep. Sometimes Livia, Gaius, and Castor were there. Other times not. Never Greyback, though sometimes Remus thought he could smell him, but that might have been the madness. After 2 days in the dark, he didn't trust his senses. After a week, he trusted nothing. He was never quite comfortable, always restless and exhausted, pacing until his feet were bruised. He slept little and often, caught between fitful bursts of unconsciousness and insomnia, and he had terrible dreams. Every bad memory squirmed its way up to the surface of his mind, mostly St. Edmund's, but also the summer after 5th year, when he'd been at his loneliest and hated Sirius. He grew paranoid, convinced that it was the others, that they were controlling his mind somehow, forcing him to see things he didn't want to see, things that weren't there. Sometimes he dreamed Sirius was dead. Then, when that had wrung all the terror out of him, he dreamed of each of his friends dying one by one. Their ghosts visited, weeping or raging. When he woke up, he never felt like they'd quite gone. Other times, Remus wondered if he was in fact dead, and this was some extremely specifically designed hell. By the end of the first week, he lost all sense of shame. He wept, he howled, he keened, he laughed maniacally, or else curled up in the corner and whispered to himself. He tried to have conversations in his head, but it didn't work the same way as before. Grant's calming voice turned into Livia, Sirius into Castor, and Remus was left with no escape at all. In moments of lucidity, he tried to summon more magic, but it was very hard, and he was so weak. Sometimes he thought he could do it. One of the others might perform a spell, always wandless. None of them ever did magic the wizard way.
to summon something or illuminate the room, and Remus felt that old stirring of power, but it never lasted long enough. Finally, Remus's parents appeared to him, in his head, but also in the cell. Hope was crying. She was sick, even in death, her face gaunt and haggard. She wore a white shroud, and there was earth in her fair hair, even though Remus knew she'd been cremated. Lyle was the worst, though, maybe because Remus had no solid basis for him beyond a few candid photographs. The Lyle his feverish imagination dreamt up was heartlessly cruel, with a plummy upper-class accent and cold blue eyes. "Let that animal destroy my wand, did you?" the spindly ghost whispered in his ear. "I should have put you out of your misery all those years ago." While the other ghost shamed him, made him feel small and sorry, Lyle had only ever made Remus angry. He raved like a madman at his father and flung himself at the walls of his cage. "Peace, brother." Castor appeared at the bars after Remus had been doing this for some time. "This is not the way." "Fuck off!" Remus snarled, holding his head in his hands as he tried to ground himself in reality. Castor withdrew. Remus continued to suffer. He curled up on the floor and covered his head like a wounded dog. That made him think of Sirius. Stupid thoughts occurred to him like, where was Sirius staying? At the Potters? At their flat? Remus didn't like the idea of Sirius all alone. Was he eating properly? Was he smoking too much? Had he fallen off that stupid bike yet and broken his neck? Was anyone even looking for Remus? He shut his eyes and tried to pretend he was somewhere else, at home in his tiny London flat reading the paper, or in his old bed at Hogwarts with the curtains drawn over. At night in the crypt, Remus could hear the rest of the pack breathing, snoring, rolling over. Some of them cried, maybe when they thought no one else was awake. Most of them coughed, a result of the damp conditions. After a week, Remus caught the cough too, and felt weaker than ever. He'd never been bulky, exactly. He'd always been decidedly skinny, even after 7 years of Hogwarts food. But now Remus barely recognized his own body. The bones in his hip became sharp. His drainpipe jeans slipped down his waist. His ribs stuck up like branches on a winter tree, and his skin grew dry and raw, cracking in places. The physical weakness only compounded Remus's despair. Who did he think he was, joining some stupid rebel army outside right after school? Had none of the hundreds of books he'd read imbued him with any common sense? Of course he couldn't go up against Greyback. The idea was laughable. So laughable, in fact, that Greyback wasn't even going to kill him. Remus wasn't worth the effort. He was simply going to waste away to nothing in his cell, and no one would ever know. "You're not trying," Castor said, returning to view him. Maybe it had only been a few hours since the first time he'd tried to get through to Remus. Maybe it had been days. It must have been daytime, because no one else was in the crypt. "Let me out," Remus babbled, clutching at the bars of his cage. "Please." "Let yourself out," Castor replied coldly. "I don't have my wand." Castor tutted at him. He held out his empty palm, and a blood-red flame appeared in it. It lent a soft, alluring glow to Castor's features, blurring the jagged edges of his scar and making him beautiful again. "We don't need wands, Remus. We do not borrow magic like common humans." "I don't have enough," Remus groaned, slumping back. "Idiot," Castor said, closing his hand over the flame, burning it into a fist. "You're brimming with it. You're still thinking like a human. Why do you think he put you in here?" "To watch me die." "Idiot," Castor replied, shaking his head disdainfully. "Why then?" Remus growled. Castor glanced round covertly to confirm they were alone. He came closer. His scent was stronger as he positioned himself right up against the cell bars, and Remus felt an involuntary pull of attraction toward him. Castor lowered his voice. "You're being tested, you fool. You are only the 4th child of Greyback to return to him. Do you know what position that gives you? What kind of power? You've seen Livius and Gaius. You know what you're capable of." "But why?" You attacked Gaius last summer. Greyback is worried about you now. He won't say it, but he is. No one challenges those two. No one.
I didn't mean to challenge anyone. He attacked me first, and I...
You acted like a wolf, Castor said triumphantly, his soft lips curling at the corners. And that is what you must do now.
Why are you telling me this?
Remus eyed him suspiciously, because it made a kind of weird sense now, as if Castor had shaken him awake. Because you're no good to me in this cage, Castor said, dark eyes burning with intensity. A year ago, Remus Lupin spoke to me of change, of a better life. I have not forgotten.
I seem to remember you laughing in my face,
Remus returned bitterly.
The pack was everything. Wasn't that what you said?
The pack is everything, Castor said fiercely. That has not changed. Other things have. You are not without allies here.
If you want my help so badly, then you get me out,
Remus said. Castor raised an eyebrow, giving Remus a long, hard, appraising look. It'll be better for you if you do it yourself. The others must see you succeed. Remus was about to ask another question when the atmosphere changed. Livia was coming. Castor backed away quickly and said nothing more. Remus watched him from a distance, his mind finally beginning to work. He needed magic, he needed power, and he needed good, strong emotion to get it all going. Luckily, Remus had always had strong emotions in abundance. That and patience. Bullshit, okay. Buoyed by Castor's intriguing proposition, Remus felt it much easier to concentrate and stay calm. Now that he knew he was not entirely alone, the ghostly apparitions became easier to ignore. And he started to notice things, like how the other werewolves were not as homogeneous as they first seemed. They were all fairly young. Clearly Greyback had a preferred type. Not one of them seemed older than 25. They were all thin and scarred. But the more Remus watched them, the more he saw their differences. Friendships and alliances, grudges and feuds, likes and dislikes. When he paid very close attention, Remus could tell how long each of them had been werewolves. It was clear from the hierarchy. The younger set fell in two camps. Fanatics who worshipped Livia and Gaius, and those who were less sure, less comfortable with this weird subterranean lifestyle. They tended to side with Castor, sleeping on one side of the crypt, talking amongst themselves. Gaius in particular seemed troubled by this group. He stalked the crypt floor every morning, demanding quiet, ordering them to lie further apart. Remus knew from their first meeting in the Manticore's head that Gaius had a short fuse, and as soon as Remus latched onto this idea, he knew he had to come up with a way to exploit it. Help eventually came from an unexpected quarter. Jeremy, one of the very youngest members of the pack, and so far the only one who'd spoken to Remus other than Castor and Livia, got bored easily. He had a mischievous side which reminded Remus of James and Sirius. He often cracked jokes to make the others laugh, and was one of the more vocal complainers when it came to living conditions. Gaius disliked him immensely, of course, and never missed an opportunity to put him in his place. One evening, as everyone was settling down to sleep, Jeremy was struck by a particularly violent coughing fit. In Remus's opinion, he was definitely hamming it up. It went on a lot longer than was probably necessary. "Control yourself, brother," Gaius hissed, on his feet at once, crossing the crypt to stand over Jeremy, teeth bared. "Sorry," Jeremy spluttered, scowling sarcastically. "I can't help it. It's the damp." "Your brothers and sisters seem to manage well enough," Gaius returned, bored. Jeremy snorted. Gaius raised a hand as if about to cast a spell. "Perhaps you need to be reminded how to behave." Jeremy licked his lips nervously and fell quiet. Castor, who'd been sitting nearby, stood up. He placed a hand on Gaius's shoulder. "I will speak to him, brother. Do not concern yourself." "Our father demands obedience," Gaius hissed. Castor's eyes flashed. "I'm well aware of our father's demands." Gaius clearly wanted to retort, but seeing the fire in Castor's expression, thought better of it and withdrew, skulking away, snapping angrily at 3 young women huddled together who'd been watching the whole thing. Castor crouched and whispered to Jeremy, "Do not provoke him." "He's a prick. He's not Greyback. He can't just order us about." "Do not provoke him," Castor repeated, a note of warning in his voice. It was not heeded. "I was coughing. I couldn't help it. Not as if I was whistling a jaunty tune." Giggling from the women nearby. "Peace," Castor said. Everyone seemed to settle down after that. Order and quiet were restored. Remus sat leaning against the back wall of his cell, arms hugging his knees. In one hand he clutched his pocket watch, which had grown hot and slippery from being held all the time. Suddenly there was a long, low whistle. Remus's eyes snapped open, his stomach turning over. That maniac. The girls near Jeremy were giggling again as he began to whistle a little tune. Remus thought it sounded like "Mary Had a Little Lamb," but he wasn't good with nursery rhymes. It only lasted a few bars. Gaius was on him in seconds, snarling, hands round Jeremy's throat. The young man's body went stiff as a board, and Remus could instantly smell the charcoal black magic Gaius was using to subdue him. It was like a faintly tingling sensation. All the hairs on his arms stood up. Remus closed his eyes and inhaled, drinking in the magical energy as though he'd been thirsting for it. The deliciousness was heightened by Gaius's terrible rage, by his flaming desire to hurt. That was it. That was it! Remus was giddy with excitement as the pieces clicked into place.
"Brother,"
Livia's voice now. She slinked across the floor toward Gaius, languid as a cat.
"leave the pup. He is restless and spirited, that is all."
Gaius released Jeremy, who collapsed back, coughing harder than before. Remus could smell the salt from his tears. Castor knelt beside the young man, a kind hand on his shoulder. Remus began to think quickly. He was rubbish at whistling. He could wolf whistle, and did Sirius love the irony of that, but he couldn't carry a tune. What else could be annoying? He needed Gaius's attention. He needed rage. He cleared his sore throat.
"Still dunno what I was waiting for."
Remus tried, his voice a bit croaky and reedy from lack of use. There was a splutter of movement, a sense of ears pricking up, as if they were waiting to see what he was up to. It was badly out of tune, too, but it was the only song he could remember all the words to. Remus swallowed and raised his voice louder, standing up and approaching the bars.
"And my time was running wild, a million dead-end streets, and..."
A bit more movement now. A few of the younger ones were sitting up, peering over at him.
"Every time I thought I got it made, it seemed the taste was not so sweet."
A few sniggers. Someone whispered, "He's finally lost it."
"So I turned myself to face me."
Remus shut his eyes and bellowed, rolling his forehead against the cold bars.
"Though I never caught a glimpse of how the others might see the faker."
"Silence!" Gaius's sharp voice rang out.
"I'm much too fast to take that test."
"Silence!" Remus tipped his head back and took a deep breath.
Changes, turn and face the strange. Changes."
Remus Lupin. Gaius was up, striding toward him, one hand raised. "Stop this at once!"
"Don't wanna be a richer man,"
Remus continued, feeling Gaius's fierce magical energy filling the space between them, like a tidal wave of hot air rushing over him, drenching him. He squeezed his pocket watch tighter and drew the magic out of that too, sucking it into his bones, his very marrow. Remus opened his eyes and the bars of his cell vanished with smoke. Grinning, he stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the crypt. He was free.
"Time may change me,"
He half sang, half laughed at Gaius, who stood before him, gobsmacked. "Get back! Livia! Castor! Help me!"
"Shut up, Gaius."
Remus raised his hand, barely thinking about it, just letting the magic do the work. Gaius was silenced. His mouth opened and closed a few times, eyes wide with terror.
Remus felt a surge of pleasure at this. Yes, fear me.
Good boy,
He smirked.
now, in you pop.
He stood aside and pushed Gaius forcefully into the cell, before snapping his fingers so that the bars reappeared at once. Gaius found his voice and roared, furious. "Let me out!" Remus laughed. He was about to turn to address the rest of the pack. They were all murmuring now, various degrees of nervousness and excitement. He felt a hand on his shoulder. Livia appeared on his left, Castor to his right. They were both smiling, pride gleaming in their eyes.
My brother,
Livia whispered.
at last, father will be so proud.
Well, okay. I feel like that was a long chapter for what it was.
Yeah, that went on forever, didn't it?
And it was, he was haunted by the ghost and it was just kind of thrown away there.
Yeah.
We're kind of building to something. Either way.
It's
there it
so
is.
weird. Like, the first chapter, he's like, oh, I want to join the werewolves. I want to join the werewolves. And then as soon as he does, he's like, I hate this. It sucks.
It's consistent, though. Remus obviously doesn't know what he wants.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Fair enough.
I guess so.
What?
They can borrow magic now.
Yeah, that's the whole levels of magic to this whole thing. It's like things just keep changing and changing and changing, and the magic just becomes more powerful, more powerful, more powerful. Like, these werewolves are like super beings.
So, yeah, the magic sounds like it works how it does in the Witcher series. So in the Witcher series, in order
Like, they're
to
drawing the magic from the universe.
There's veins of magic running through the world, and you have to be able to draw
harness
it from
them.
that.
Yeah.
Energy cannot be
Created
or destroyed.
Yeah.
So they have to use other. But this is what it sounds like. It sounds like they're pulling the energy from other things.
Right. And in Harry Potter, it's more like Dumbledore can sense the magic because magic leaves traces.
Yeah.
Not that it's there to be harnessed. Like in Harry Potter, you
That's why
have the magic within you.
Yeah. Like the way that Remus describes how he can smell dark magic and stuff.
Right.
That makes sense. I like that.
Right, the smelling the magic and whatever, because Dumbledore can sense the magic, so sure, maybe werewolves can like smell the magic, but this whole thing is getting ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they have all this ability, why hasn't Greyback like taken over the wizarding world at this point? Because he could just go around dementoring everybody for their magic.
Right? Just go up to Voldemort and
Like, suck out his magic.
Exactly.
Like, that.
especially after Voldemort is destroyed, because then he's just a being of pure magic. He has no body or anything.
Right, he's literally a shadow magic
Chase
thing.
him down like Pac-Man, just ow, ow, ow.
Right. This.
Fenrir got the cherry. Better run, ghosts.
The Dementors could do that too. They don't. Well, Dementors suck out happiness. They don't suck out magic.
But I mean, they would if they could, though.
If they could, yeah, they would be sucking up magic.
The
left,
wizards
right,
just
center.
control them with their Patronus.
Yeah, they don't suck out their magic though. They just suck out their happiness. They don't suck out their magic.
But they're saying that the Dementors could suck out the happiness, but they don't just go around doing that.
Oh. Well.
Hence why Fenrir doesn't just go around sucking out people's magic.
Dementors suck out happiness all the time.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think they would if they could. They just don't.
Because the wizards control
Yeah.
them. Right. until, what is it, book 6, when they're all over the place and everyone in Britain is just feeling very depressed because it's so foggy out.
Which we know is just a Dementor orgy.
Yes. Yes.
They reproduce in the fog.
Yes.
Stephen King and J.K. Rowling should
Collaborate.
get together.
The Mist.
The Mist 2. Dementor's Boogaloo.
Do they really control them, or do they give them treats like puppies?
I mean, Azkaban, that's basically it. Like, look, you be good, we might throw you a new prisoner.
I mean, that is kind of what Azkaban is. It's just a big, giant beehive of...
Who's ready to give the Dementors kiss? You are. Yes, you are. Who's a good depression being?
Also, that Remus is, like, now asserted himself as second in command in the pack because he got Gaius to submit to him. Also, I'm getting weird, like, vibes that Remus is gonna, like, start being into Castor, like, for reals.
Oh, you think so?
He keeps talking about how attractive Castor is and
Castor's
how he
got
felt a
that bad
pull
boy.
towards him. And I'm like, is he going to be at the pack and be like, oh, but Sirius is home waiting for me. But Castor is so primal and hot.
That wolf instinct.
I'm just saying, I could see it happening. And then I'm
Yeah.
really going to hate him if he is in the pack and then he cheats on Sirius. Then I'll be really pissed.
You're just gonna be relieved when we finally get to Remus's death scene.
Yeah. Whoever killed him, I'm going to be like, high five Death Eater, whichever one of you did it, because Jesus Christ.
You know it's gonna be Greyback in this. Greyback is gonna do it somehow.
Although
It's gotta be.
in canon, I was very sad about Remus Lupin dying. It was terrible.
Oh, 100%.
But I like
man.
Book Remus. I like Book Remus Lupin. He's a great guy. He's a great character. But this guy is a shithead.
Yeah.
And I can't stand him. And I hate this werewolf crap. And it's just getting worse and worse with each chapter.
Your rants about how bad the werewolves are, that was great. So good.
I hate it. Jeremy, like, I just, He'll say that Sirius is working too much, so he had no choice but to sleep with the hot wolf. I am just saying, I could see it. Book Remus is wishy-washy who tries to leave his pregnant wife. The author is pretty spot on.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I mean, I get that. But there's a lot about Lupin as a character that's, like, really good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole leaving his wife thing, trying to run away with Harry was pretty terrible. But it is our choices far more than our abilities. Harry does get through to him, and Remus does not abandon her. He comes back. But the way that this is going, I feel like now that Remus has gotten Gaius to submit to him, he's going to be like, yeah, maybe I got this. I'm going to do this thing. Castor's going to be my wolf boyfriend. Oh, but wait. Sirius at home. No.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Remus without Harry is just, well, this is it.
If Harry Potter had not been, there, would Remus be a drunk homeless man in an alley, hating himself?
So, I mean, Harry is his Jiminy Cricket.
The part where he didn't have any contact with Harry or let him know he was his parents' friend? Oh, yeah, I forgot Remus tries to bail. I kind of blacked that out of my mind.
Oh, man. Remus. Yeah, honestly, maybe we're just painting Remus Lupin in too good of a light. Maybe we're just forgetting. We need to go revisit.
We need to read the books again.
Yeah. Looking at rose-tinted glasses.
Maybe because this is just driving me so bananas.
This is why J.K. Rowling did not write a book about Remus.
This is why I'm sitting here going, who thinks this is better than the original series? What the hell?
They just didn't write...
like,
when Harry had his moment, he was brought out of it by, Ron and Hermione. They helped bring him out. Didn't really happen with, Sirius, James, and Lily. I don't know. Either way.
Harry had a lot of people. Harry had Ron and Hermione. He had Hagrid. He even... Luna, Ginny, Neville, Mrs. Weasley. Harry is surrounded by support and people that love him.
But Remus was, too. Hello, Marcelo.
But even this book was supposed to be about all the young dudes, not just Remus mostly. Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. I thought this was the story of all of them together, with Remus being the channel through which we see it.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcelo.
Not just...
Yes, thank you. That's why I wanted. I wanted, frat boy Remus, basically.
Right. I mean,
that's what I was expecting from all the young dudes.
You'd obviously have to have, a Remus-centered plot, because he's the center of the story, but at this point, I'm just I just hate this werewolf shit. It's getting ridiculous.
But on that note, it's saying that our internet is having
bad
issues
again.
But
right.
So I think that's a good place to end it. Right
We'll
there.
call it for now. We'll call it for now. We will see you all on Thursday. Keep an eye out on the Instagram and the Discord. We'll let you know what time we're streaming on Thursday to read the next chapter called...
And hopefully there's no issues with the internet.
It's called Foot Soldiers. References to sex, violence, and animal death.
Well, I don't like that last part.
Me either.
Okay.
All right, anyway.
And thank you, everyone who stuck with us through all the issues.
Yes, thank you to everyone for having some patience with us for our internet issues.
We'll get that fixed, and we'll see you next time, this Thursday.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.